Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Grace Holland. North Carolina lawmakers are sparring over the details of a $32 billion state spending plan, but one thing they seem to agree on is that Lieutenant Governor Rachel Hunt needs new furniture. Buried in thousands of pages of spending proposals is $95,000 for Hunt to buy new furniture for the lieutenant governor's office. The request has raised eyebrows in state government circles. Jack Hagel and Paul Specht of our NC Capitol team have been digging into why the furniture is needed in the first place, and they are joining us now. There is a lot of important stuff in the state budget, but this line item stood out to you. Why?
Well, you're right. This is only $95,000, which may sound like a lot to people, but it's a $32 billion budget. So in the grand scheme of things, this is just kind of like a rounding error. But Paul and I started hearing from people within state government saying, hey, we're hearing that the lieutenant governor is asking for money for new furniture. Mm-hmm. And that kind of led to this okay, well, when you're thinking about it in terms of your own home, $95,000 is a lot of furniture.
Right.
For some people, that's worth, half or, pretty close to what their whole house is worth. So, we wanted to sort of understand what that was and maybe why that was and, where'd the furniture go. And so, but these tipsters were curious about, whether or not there was any wrongdoing. I think when you think, okay, well, where to go, and nobody seems to know, I think people start to ask questions. And we didn't find any hints of wrongdoing, but there were a lot of questions. And what we found is that it appeared to be sort of this unique circumstance that was unique to this building, which is kind of different than most state offices.
And so, Paul, what is so unique about this building?
Well, a lot of our state officials are in these government offices downtown. The lieutenant governor lives in a 140-year-old house. Excuse me, I said lives, operates out of it. It's not a residence. It's just an office. But it's massive. It's on Blunt Street here, and it's beautiful. It's a brick house. It has pretty paint and unique roofing and things like that. And so when Lieutenant Governor Dan Forest came in 2013, he saw some things he wanted to change. He was like, oh, well, this is a beautiful house. It has great bones, as he put it, and I have the means to fix it up. And because he's lieutenant governor, he sort of has the time to do that. Lieutenant governors don't have much power in this state. All they do is really preside over the state senate, and they have voting roles on some various boards and commissions. So he sort of took this on, fixing up this old house, as his baby, and that's how this all started.
Okay.
And he's an architect too. He's got the contacts within that industry.
That's right. And so I said it was his baby. This was up his alley when he came in. He knew who to call for favors, for advice, and things like that.
Right. And so, okay, fast forward to Lieutenant Governor Hunt. What was the state of the house when she took office?
Well, when she got in, a lot of the work that Forrest had done was still there, right? He had the roof repaired. He had the ceilings fixed. But he had brought in his own furniture on loan at the time. And I'll fast forward through, I'll skip over a little bit what happened, but when Hunt opened the doors, she found ratty carpets and empty rooms and bare walls. And so here she is. Rachel Hunt is the daughter of former Governor Jim Hunt, one of the most popular politicians in this state. She's been around state government. She was a state senator before this. She walks in, she says, hey, where's all the stuff? And who do I call to get it back?
Right.
And that's how we end up with a $95,000 budget request for furniture in the state budget.
Wow. Okay, let's take a quick break right there, and when we come back, we'll learn why Hunt arrived to an empty office. Stick around. Welcome back to the WRAL Daily Download. We're talking with Jack Hagel and Paul Specht of WRAL's NC Capitol team. So, okay, as we were talking before the break, Lieutenant Governor Hunt gets to the office and it's basically empty. What happened to that furniture, Jack?
Well, Hunt moves in. She finds, as we discussed, lots of these offices empty and sort of not what Forrest had intended. I think Paul had mentioned, when Forrest underwent this project, he said he wanted this thing to be fixed up for lieutenant governors into the future. He wanted to see his project sort of carried on from term to term.
He wanted it more than just an office. I think he used the word showplace.
Yeah, a showplace for lieutenant governors well into the future. And so, when she shows up, it's not exactly what he had sort of envisioned. And but all of this sort of starts, as I think we discussed, it appears to have started with Forrest. When he moved in, I think there was just a lot of really old state furniture, maybe not a lot, but it wasn't suited to the house. It had been years and years and years, just like any other state office. That they don't change the office or furniture too often.
Right. Imagine you're Dan Forrest. You come from the private sector. You want to show this place off, and you're thinking, I can't bring my friends in here. This is government furniture.
So he just kind of gets rid of that old furniture. There's a process for that, and he brings in, as Paul mentioned, this loaned furniture. And so, it's not controlled by the state. But when he leaves office, he tells Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, who was replacing him, hey, we've got this furniture. If you want to use it, you can. If not, it's, figure it out. And so Robinson comes in. He decides to bring his own furniture. From what I understand, the stuff that was left, a lot of it got moved to the basement. And so when he's here, Robinson was here for 4 years. He goes through his term with his own furniture, also on loan. And when he leaves office, well, the loan was over and the furniture comes back. So when Rachel Hunt shows up, these rooms are empty. So there's some furniture in the basement. I think her staff had to figure out, well, it doesn't have maybe a state sticker on it. Like, who does this furniture belong to? We know that Forrest had done some work in the house. So she calls Forrest and has him walk through the property. And so she, they start to kind of figure out, okay, well, this doesn't belong to the state. This does belong to the state. And they're just kind of sort of sorting through this tangle of furniture. So basically it was back to how it was when Forrest started, because there wasn't any furniture when he started his term because he got rid of it.
Okay. And so what does she plan to, or want to do rather, with this $95,000?
Well, she kind of wants to do what Forrest did. She wants to have furniture that's fitting for this home. It's a historic property. It's Second Empire. She wants to have furniture that, sort of fits the feel of the home. If you could imagine, if you're buying state office furniture, cubicles in a house like that, it's just such a unique property. Like, I don't think the state auditor or the state treasurer has to deal with it. They're in basic office buildings. They have office furniture that, but this is a home. And as Paul mentioned, lieutenant governors, it's a bit of a ceremonial position. They entertain. So can you imagine walking into a Second Empire historic home, 140-year-old mansion, and seeing cubicles?
Right.
So she wants to kind of, get the kind of furniture that fits the home, and that it wouldn't be surprising to somebody from the public who would come and visit the home. And she wants it to stay there and kind of break this cycle of loaned furniture, bring your own stuff in, that sort of thing. And that's kind of what she hopes to do.
Okay. So, Paul, all of that, but it's all tied up in the budget negotiations right now, right?
That's right. Every couple of years, these state lawmakers, Republicans mostly, in the state's House and the state Senate, they come together and they try to agree on the spending plan to fund state government. And this year, they're far apart on some other major issues like the corporate tax rate, the personal income tax rate, education policy, things like that. And they don't appear to be anywhere close to a compromise bill. And so, while both the House and the Senate had included this funding for the lieutenant governor's office, it could be collateral damage. If they could never, they don't have to pass a budget, and there's a possibility they don't. And if that happens, maybe they'll have to find another way to get it to her. Maybe they break it out into a separate bill. We're expecting the Senate lawmakers to propose what they call mini budgets this week to address certain items that are more high priority and time sensitive, things in state government that have to be funded. But those don't appear to have any funding for the lieutenant governor's furniture. So we'll see. Lawmakers plan to take July off and then come back and keep discussing it. It could take months. Well, I can't say whether or not she'll actually get this funding.
I mean, at this point, what's sort of the next step that we even can expect to happen with the budget, given all this uncertainty?
Well, they're going to try to come to agreements where they can and pass these mini budgets. I say mini, not M-A-N-Y, but M-I-N-I. Small,
Right.
small, tiny budgets that fund specific things. And we'll just have to watch and see if they break apart this funding for her. In the meantime, her office is operating on sort of older government furniture that may not look the part of a 140-year-old historic landmark. This is like on a registry somewhere,
Right.
and it's over there off on Blunt Street, I should say, neighboring the governor's mansion and these other beautiful historic homes. And so she, in the meantime, is just going to have to find a way to make it work and get by with, this old government stuff, or maybe she'll start reaching out for loans too. If anyone has a leather couch befitting of the second highest ranking officer in the state, call Rachel Hunt.
And that's what we they've reached out to some groups to get furniture on loan that they intend to purchase when they get the state funding. And we're hearing from people who are familiar with the office that the office is functional now, and in fact they had to work out of a temporary office for a period of time. But they're hearing that the office is functional. It could just be a little bit more efficient if they had sort of the funding to kind of finish outfitting the office.
All right. Well, fascinating reporting here, guys. We'll be watching closely. Thank you so much. That's Jack Hagel and Paul Spey of our NC Capitol team for their deep dive on the Lieutenant Governor's furniture. And for all of our state spending coverage, check out the NC Capitol section of WRAL.com. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for listening to the WRAL Daily Download and for making us part of your morning routine. Another great way to get WRAL news is the Morning Briefing newsletter. That's a daily email with Triangle news, events, and headlines to help you get ready for the day. Sign up at WRAL.com/newsletter.